Drivers, start your engines!
Hi everybody, welcome to Daytona International Speedway. We have a qualifying session going on right now, which will be followed by 2 heats. And then the feature race will happen after the heats. So we're going to try to set our best lap here. Qualifying. And that'll determine, I guess, our starting position for Heat 1 or Heat 2. It is a fixed setup race, and this is the Next Gen Ford Mustang Cup car. And we're going to talk about fixed setups. This is a fixed setup race. And with fixed setups, of course, you can't do too much, or can you? We're going to show you a few things that you can do to help improve your car on the track. This has to do with force feedback and your brake forces. In the next gen car, if you look at the open setup, you have an awful lot of adjustments that you can make. And I'm by no means an expert at any of those adjustments. But in the fixed setup, you can adjust your steering pinion, which I think is like your steering ratio, and your steering offset, and your brake bias. So we're going to show you how you can make some adjustments to that through some of the practice sessions that I've been doing. Okay, so this qualifying coming to an end here. We've done all right. Okay, so there we go. That's our qualifying. We're going to jump into
the track temperature is increasing. It's now 105
our first
Fahrenheit.
Heat.
Go. 1 gallon remaining.
We don't have 1 gallon remaining. We have enough to do about 8 laps. The heat is 8 laps. This is heat number 2. We started on the pole for heat number 2. And we have just enough fuel to do those 8 laps. We'll talk a little bit about fixed settings right now as we watch this guy trying to dive to the inside across the double yellow line. Now that's a disaster at the end of the corner. Look at this, 3 wide. He has to come back up the track, so I got to give him room. And I go 3 wide. Luckily 18 gave me a bit of room. I have to back out of it. Wow. Okay. Anyways, we'll watch the rest of the heat and we'll talk a little bit about fixed settings for the Next Gen Cup cars. All right, let's take a look at some of the settings you get with the new Next Gen Cup cars. Here I am at Daytona, and that's where the race is taking place. We're in a test session right now, and we go into the garage, iRacing setup. Take a look at the Daytona oval setup, and you can see the tire pressures on the front, the rear, chassis. Wow, there are a lot of settings here, quite a few settings. These are similar, I believe, to the Cup cars, current Cup cars, but because this is the next gen car, there has been some, I guess for lack of a better term, I'll just say some renaming going on. And we have things that we're familiar with, like cross weight, have spring rates, looking at the ride heights, camber, toe in. We have some things that we're familiar with. Let's scroll down to the bottom here. One thing we seem to be missing, though, two things that we seem to be obviously missing are how much fuel we can put in the car. I can't find any setting anywhere for how much fuel goes in the car. And I can't find any setting for how much tape goes on the grill of the car. Maybe the tape on the grill is a thing of the past with the next gen cars. I don't know. But I can't find it. And I don't know how to set a lower amount of fuel. We could do it, of course, in-car in the black box. Once we have done a fuel run and we come back in for refueling, we can fuel it up to whatever we want, put in just a minimum amount or a medium amount or a maximum. But when we're first starting out on track, there doesn't seem to be any way to reduce the fuel to maybe like just do a couple of laps for a qualifying run. Now, we're talking about fixed setup, so we don't have the option of checking and doing any alterations on any of these settings, but we can work with the steering pinion, which is set at something called 40 millimeters per rev. We can work with steering offset, and we can work with the front brake bias. So in a fixed setup, that's similar to the Cup cars. We have those three things we can play with. Now I've found from just doing some initial testing with the next gen Cup car that these values for steering pinion, I'll just open the drop down. We have 40, 46.5, 53, 60, 67, 73, and 80, all in millimeters per rev. So I'm guessing that's the millimeters of turn on the steering wheel you get per rev. But if you're doing 8,000 revs, you multiply. Do you take 780 millimeters and divide it by 8,000? And that tells you like your steering angle. I'm not sure, but from what I've found out in testing is that these seem to function very similar to the existing Cup cars, where you have maybe the 8-to-1 steering ratio, and then the 10-to-1, 12-to-1, 14-to-1, 16-to-1, and then this has a few more options. So in testing at Daytona, if you're using the 40, that's like using 8-to-1, and that's maybe too low a steering ratio. If you go to 80, that's like maybe using 16-to-1, and that's not the greatest at a super speedway. So what is closer to maybe 10-to-1 or 12-to-1 for a super speedway? And I found that the sweet spot for me seems to be 53. So I leave that at 53 millimeters per rev. The steering offset at 0 degrees is fine for Daytona. We don't have to adjust that, but if you want to adjust it so that your wheel is slightly off center to the left or to the right while you're driving, if you prefer like having some offset to the left to help you kind of get that turn into the corner, then you can change your steering offset. But 0 degrees seems to be straight for Daytona, and I kind of like it that way. And then finally we have the front brake bias, which we can increase all the way up to 56%, or decrease all the way down to, wait a second, 44%. Now again, just with my testing, I found that if we decrease it right down to 44%, that is giving us a good value for helping us get around the track quicker. Now you might say, well, when you come in for the pits and you have to kind of brake hard, don't you want your brake bias to be a little bit higher, closer to the default, which is maybe around 50%? And you're probably correct in saying that. But if you have your brake bias black box setting mapped to some buttons on your steering wheel or on a black box, then you can easily just adjust that up when you're coming into the pit and then adjust it back down when you leave the pit to get back on track. So in a fixed setup race, I have found that the 53 millimeters per rev steering pinion and a 44% front brake bias is the way to go. Okay, so that's what we would keep. So I'll just click done. Now, it's a fixed setup race, so you really can't do many other adjustments. Or can you? Maybe you can. And here's what you could do. You can go into your options. And you can do a little work with your steering wheel range. You can bring it down to around 900 or so. And then the map range, a little bit above that, maybe 925 to 950. That helps a little bit with your steering. The brake force factor is an interesting one. I kind of like to bring it up to about 1.65, that area. And I'm using that in conjunction with force feedback, but not iRacing force feedback. I don't like a lot of force feedback. I don't like having to really struggle with the wheel when I'm turning. I like a little bit so I can feel the sensations of the curves and when I drop on below the apron, and if I hit a bump, I don't need the big jarring shock when I hit the wall or another car. So if I am using iRacing's force feedback, you can see my settings are pretty low. But you'll notice that under the enable force feedback, the two other settings are grayed out. And this means that I'm actually not using iRacing's force feedback. I'm using a third-party program force feedback. What I'm using is the iRFFB. Yes, that's iRacing force feedback. Now, this is a third-party program. And if you want to learn more about it, just Google iRFFB, iRacing, and you'll find lots of YouTube videos explaining what it is and where to get it and how to set it up. And you have to play around with it a little bit. But once you play around with it and get it to where you want it, it will do the job of the force feedback for you in the car. Now, why is it good? Well, it's good because it has settings that you can put for the suspension bumps, and I have it kind of low. I don't need a big jar. I just want to feel it. Let's go over the grass or the curb. Understeer setting. So this is important. This sends information to the wheel so you can feel it in the wheel before you see it happening on the track if you're understeering. And it tries to correct for you. It helps you correct. So if you're starting to go into a little bit of a spin because you got understeer or the back end slipping out, this will let you know before you actually visually see it. Now you can turn up your brakes and your wheel sounds in the game to help you with the wheels squealing if you're kind of pushing it a bit too much. But this feeling you get in the wheel is quite amazing. It helps you correct. And then you've got this other thing down here called SOP, or seat of pants effect. And it's kind of the same idea. It sends information to the wheel that you would normally, maybe if you were in a real car, you'd feel it, in the seat of your pants, through the chair, through the seat, through your butt. and you would know what your car is kind of doing. This kind of gives you that kind of sensation, get it into the wheel. Now, it's not overwhelming information. It's just enough to help you make corrections. And so you don't spin or lose control or maybe go over the limit. Now, these settings are all adjustable. Again, I have my forces very, very low. No damping. I want to feel whatever I've set it at, so any damping or offset I've gotten rid of. So the SOP effect, I only have it 30. Some people have it cranked right up to 100. Same with the understeer. But for me, I want the sensations of what's going on, but I don't want to be struggling with the wheel all the time, fighting it back and forth. I just want to feel what's going on so I can make the corrections myself. So I am using this IR force feedback program, third-party program, and when it's running, it takes the place of the iRacing, so it gets grayed out, and also your force feedback information in your black box does not show up when you have this running. So these are 3 more things that you can do. You can adjust your steering range, race force factor, again, helping you with lockups. But there's one other thing that you can really do to help you with the lockups. That is down here. If you click Use Custom Controls for this car, then something very interesting happens in your iRacing setups. Just go to File Explorer here, Documents, iRacing, Setups, find the car, which is the Next Gen Mustang right now. Okay. And now we have this file called joycalib.yaml. If I click that, it opens a notepad, and I get this calibration information. And this is from my steering, my brake, and my clutch calibration in the options menu of the iRacing program. So it lists what the wheel is. I have the DD2 from Fanatic, and it has different axes, and there's one for brake, and the brake one, the center of calibration is 65535, and that's the number you see when you're actually calibrating your brakes in iRacing. That would be the same number you see for Calib Max calibration. But I've adjusted for a 20% more leeway in my braking, so it's set at, I've reset it at 78642, which is 20% more than the 65535. So that means when I depress my brake, if I depress it fully, I'm only getting 80% of my brake, and that helps me prevent lockups. So this is a cool little trick that you can use. It only works though if you click on the Use Custom Controls for this car. You do this for each car that you have. You can go into that the settings for it, go to that calibration program, and change the calibration settings for your wheel, your brake, your clutch, anything you want. But I found that it's most handy on the brake. So up here is where you calibrate your pedals. When you do that, you get that 65535 number for your maximum kind of value on it. Change that to 78642 in the little calibration program, and then you're going to find that you're not really going to lock up that much. And then you adjust your brake force factor so that even improves the ability of your brakes not to lock up. And again, I found the combination that I have with the calibration and to the force factor being 1.65 is pretty good. Now, works well for super speedways, coming into the pits. It works well on the mile and a half tracks, ovals. For road courses, I'm just starting to work with that a little bit, but so far with the IRFFB and this brake force factor, the way it's set, and the small adjustments you can make, it seems to be working well for road courses. So that to me is really good. Really very good. Okay, so I'm going to click out of this. Those are basically all the tips I have for you. I can show you one other thing. If you have Fanatic software, the FanaLab software, you get a little tuning menu, and again, I've set my overall force feedback strength at only 5%. If I move it up to 10% or 15% or higher, again, I get a lot of resistance in the wheel. And you know, if you're driving a 200-lap race, by the end of that race, your arms are going to feel like noodles because you're spending so much energy just fighting the wheel with all the force feedback. So again, I like low values. You set it the way you want. I have 5% here. I have only 35 and 30% over here, and all minimum on my forces. And it seems to work well for me. So there we go. We can exit out of that. And if we go into the test session now, we can just click through the black boxes quickly. Of course, the lap timing box, standings, relative, fuel. Again, I've mapped my fuels to a button box so I can change things very quickly. Tires, and replace, not replace. Again, I have that mapped to a button box so I can do that very quickly. Tire info, pit stop adjustments if you want to adjust springs. I don't really do anything there. Car adjustments, there's the front brake bias, and as I said, I've got it mapped so I can increase it if I wish. Go up 3%.
Box in 5, 4, 3.
Oh, it's actually go quite higher.
Box now.
Or I can go back down to where I was. So during the race, I can make adjustments to my brake bias very easily.
Pit exit looks clear.
Adjust it if I have to come into the pits or where I'm braking a little harder. Okay, here's the graphics adjustments for your mirrors. And you'll notice at the very bottom it says driver height, but the bottom used to say the force feedback that you could adjust, but it doesn't say that anymore because iRacing is not controlling the force feedback. It's being controlled by that IRFFB program. And then the radio, and then nothing. So if I bring down my Z1 dash, I can show you some of these features in action. So we'll head out on the track.
60 miles per hour.
I love the Next Gen Mustang. 5 gears, sequential shifting. Getting up to 5th gear until we get around the corner here. Here we go. Doing a nice lap. I switch over to my fuel. See, it's going to give me a full fuel service. And if I click on this, you can see I've just got rid of all that, and I've got rid of tires. If I want everything back on again, I can click that. Comes back on to change my tires. Give me a full fuel load. Actually, it's only giving me half a load. I guess I've got it set for a short fuel. That one. If I want to leave the gas alone, I can click off. Oh, so I just click the button and oops. And you can see that my gas is the same, but my tires have gone off. And then I've got buttons for fast repairs. I can put them on or off like that. Now if I decide that I'm going to come into the pits, I can adjust my brake force, my brake bias. So here I can turn it up. See, I took it back up. Bring it right back up to wherever I want it. Then bring it back up to 55. When I come back in, I've got very good, and you can see I'm pressing pretty hard and rocking up a bit.
140 meters.
Then after I come into the pits, I can put it back down to wherever I want for the next run.
Box in 5.
So,
Lap time 55.999.
3, 2,
P1.
1. Box now.
Laps of fuel 33.
so there you have it. That's all of my settings. That's pretty quick, pretty cool.
On lap 3.
We'll escape out of that. We'll have a quick look at our Next Gen Ford Mustang car in the nice Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. There we go. So I hope you enjoyed those tips, and we'll see them in action in the race.
Watch your speed. Box in 430 meters. Box in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Box now. The pit exit looks clear. Look out for the pit speed limit. Box in 430 meters. Box in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Box now. Pit exit's clear. Push.
All right, welcome back to the race. As you can see, it's been fairly eventful with a couple of restarts. And I've been able to hang on to second position on the restarts. We are on lap 23 of 30 laps in the feature race. I believe at this point in time, we have one more pit stop to go. '15 car made a mistake on pit entry on the last pit cycle. Came in a little bit too hot and probably ended up getting a black flag and lost a lap because of that. The 04 is a lap down as well, or a couple laps down. And second place is, I think, well over half a lap behind me. In fact, might be multiple laps. So we have lapped the field at this point in time. And we have some drafting help to keep pulling away. Well, I think a combination of our fixed settings with some good pit stops has helped us get this position in the race. Now, we only have enough fuel to make it to lap 29 of 30, so I think we're going to have to make one more stop. We are a lap ahead of everyone. So we're in good shape. As long as we don't get wrecked, we're in good shape. The 04 is giving us a little bit of a bump draft down the back straight. as long as he does not tap us in the corner. Have to be careful. I don't want to wobble too much in the draft. Otherwise, we've done pretty good with our first run in the Next Gen Cup car.
That's 20 minutes to go.
Two cars from the ISNF League drafting together. They finished first and third, I believe, in the race. And here's our pit stop. End of lap 28.
Speed limit in the pits.
And we overcooked it.
Meters.
We came in 2 miles an hour over the limit, and we end up with a black flag.
4, 3.
So we're going to have to sit in the pits for 30 seconds and take a penalty. Fortunately, everyone else is a lap down. Takes about 47, 48 seconds to do a lap. So even if we take this 30-second penalty, we still should be okay for the win. That's agonizing, sitting on
Your exit is clear. Watch the white line.
pit road for 30 seconds while you're in first place. Okay, so we're back on track. Our pit stops are timed so that we're only taking on a small amount of fuel, no tires. Don't really need to change the tires that frequently in a 30-lap race here at Daytona. And we come out and we're still we've got a good advantage over second place, so still okay. So that's not too bad. We had a pretty good race. We overshot our pit stall on one pit stop, so that lost us maybe 4 or 5 seconds, and we got the black flag there on our last pit stop for coming in too hot into pit lane. It's 60 miles per hour. We were at 62, I believe, when we crossed the line, so we took the black flag penalty, 30 seconds. But because of all the incidents and wrecks behind us, we were still able to maintain the lead of the race. And now we're on lap 30. No challenge. And we're coming out of 4, heading to the tri-oval. There we go. We pick up our very first Next Gen Cup race win. Now, I will say I spent about an hour ahead of this race in this car, acclimatizing myself and playing with the settings. try to get the fastest car I could. And I think with a combination of those fixed settings, the steering pinion 53 millimeters per rev, and reducing the brake bias right down to 44%, using the iRacing force feedback third-party program, so I could really feel the track. Felt all those things, really did a good job for me in controlling the car. And I'm still very much a rookie at this, but with more practice, I'm hoping things can only get better. So I want to thank everybody for watching. Hopefully you can go now and do a little work with your fixed setups. Open setup, I don't know what I'm going to do there. That's going to be a lot trickier. But for fixed setups and the iRacing force feedback program, go give these things a try, because I think you'll find that there are a lot of improvements to the way your car feels, the way you drive it, and hopefully that makes you go faster. So we'll see you next time. Check us out on YouTube, JHRacing. We got lots of commentary, setup, information, and race replays, and live stream iRacing. 10-4 over and out.